Hello and welcome to Stage 3 of the World Series qualifier on Dirt Rally 2, this time from New Zealand. Now, because I am such a pro YouTuber, I managed to delete the camera file that I recorded live whilst actually doing this, so you won't get to see me struggling with the steering wheel through this stage. Instead, we're going to have a bit of a retrospective commentary on the stage, what I thought and how I went.
5, 4.
Okay, so here we go for a retrospective commentary and my reflections and thoughts on this stage, as well as commentating through the stage that you can see into an immediate handbrake kick around. That felt quite nice. Now, I do want to say about this stage, it was a hell of a lot easier to learn and do for the first time than the previous round 2, which was an absolute stage from hell. If you haven't seen my attempt there, I do recommend watching it. I'll pop a little card up on the screen and probably recommend it at the end of this video as well. Go and check that one out. But the thing with that is, as hard as it was and as gnarly as that track was, it was so tight and narrow with switchbacks, it wasn't really about overall speed for me. I mean, I didn't do obviously all that well. I'm still brand new to Dirt Rally. This is like stage 5 or 6 now that I've done in total. I'm pretty much using this game exclusively at this point for these World Series qualifiers. I only really bought the game just before this started, and you can see me make my first mistake of the run there, and I'll tell you why I made that mistake, because I'm going very timidly. So what I wanted to say about the previous stage in Argentina, as I say, it was about survival and just trying to get to the other end. And I managed to place in the top 500 globally overall across all platforms, and that in itself is a pretty big achievement. Don't get me wrong, I am fairly happy with 467th or whatever it was that I came. This track, comparatively, a hell of a lot easier to learn. I actually got through the stage on my first attempt, which is very, very different. The car, so much easier to handle than the Group B monsters that we saw last time around. This has got nowhere near the horsepower. It is still four-wheel drive. The surface is probably not quite as grippy. I don't know if that's just me or maybe the fact that the car's a bit slower, but it just felt a little bit more wishy-washy. I don't know if that terminology makes any sense, but it just kind of made the car feel big and fat and heavy and just sliding across the track. And of course, this is a tiny little Ford Fiesta. This should weigh nowhere near as much as the old Group B cars, but yeah, maybe a lack of power, maybe the surface, I don't know. But what I found is that I only really had about an hour to practice before I did this to start with, which is perhaps not enough. I invested a lot more time and effort into the Argentina round because it was so technical and so challenging. I had to actually learn the track itself. Whereas this one, I suppose, I powered through, nailed it on the first run. And this corner, by the way, is a lot harder than it looks. You think you just kick the handbrake and run around, but it immediately wants to spit you off the track. But anyway, this track, or stage as it were, was easy, but as soon as you tried to push for extra time and tried to go that much faster and really, get somewhere up the leaderboard, it became super difficult. And you actually do need to put as much effort into learning a track like this. If anything, I think it's harder, because it's not just about survival and keeping off the walls and not burying the nose into the rocks. You actually have to know what speed to enter the corners, what angle to enter the corners on, and where to clip on the inside. And I mentioned last time it's a lot about half throttle, or easing the throttle on, because of course with the Group Bs, as soon as you punch it, and I got lucky there, I just clipped a pylon as I went into that corner. It's a little post or something hanging out of the ground. I clipped it 3 or 4 times before when I was practicing, and it buried me straight in the tree, so lucky to get away with that. But yeah, you really have to have a good grasp on the car's positioning, the attack angle on the corner, and you kind of have to aggressively throw the front in and then still just use that half throttle. So even though the car had nowhere near as much grunt, if you flatten it, it still just wants to wash off the track and not give you a lot of grip. So you have to feather the throttle a bit, not give it too much, and hope to try and find that actual grip level. But you can see there again, I'm just turning in a little bit too early. What I did was the very last practice run I did before starting this stage. I actually I had a great run. The first 3 quarters of the stage was perfect, and it was going to be by far my best time. I felt pretty good about it. Then I made a little mistake at the end, again, pushing too hard and getting it all wrong. So that kind of made me a bit gun shy going into this, and I was on a bit of a time restraint, so I didn't have another hour just to keep punching away. I think I also underestimated it because it is more simple. I went, well, I don't need as much practice to be good, but that's not the reality. And as you can see, I'm making a lot of mistakes. I just came in too conservative. I tried to play it too safe. And when I stopped really throwing the car around and getting the right attack angles into the corner, I started making a lot more mistakes. I had a lot less front end grip. So yeah, I guess if there's any tips to take away from this, if I've got a tip for young players out there, don't write the stages off because they're a lot more simple or a lot less technical, because to try and produce speed, you can see there, I was talking about attack angle, I just got it all wrong. I came in quite fast with the car facing away from that left-hander, but I had to brake because I needed to wash the speed off the car. And of course, as soon as you start to brake, the car's going to slide in that direction. So you don't actually need to kick the handbrake as much as you might think. You can throw the front of the car left, for example, into this one, and then get on the brakes as you're coming into a slower corner, and it will actually back the car into the corner. Now, I don't know if that's quite the right term, that's a bit of a motorbike term, backing it in, but you're getting the car already at the angle before you get there. So you'd see drift cars do that as well. And then you can use that forward drive traction to punch out of the corner and get good grip and good launch. And as soon as I got conservative and tried to just baby the steering around again, you can see me not attacking the corner hard enough, and going too slow actually seriously affects your time. And at this point already, I knew I was in big strife. Concentration started to lapse, and this section in itself is actually pretty fast as you go through the gates there, which is always gnarly. Trying to get this section wrong, I clipped that wall to the left-hand side so many times at the back end of the car, and you can see everything's getting a little bit messier. And then as I come into this, I just got it all kinds of wrong, down the hill into the wall, and obviously totally stationary, lost a huge amount of time. And then when I reset the car, I got a further 9-second penalty. So as much as it was a weak stage to start with, I was not feeling good about it. I just made it a hell of a lot worse because I must have lost somewhere like 9 or 10 seconds in the actual accident itself, coming to a complete standstill and waiting until it allowed me to reset the car. And then when I hit that reset, I got a further 9-second penalty. So it really destroyed what could have been a safe run. Next time, I think I will try and race this more the way I practiced it. And I think that's a key thing. If you're going to practice in a particular way, you need to race in that same way. There's no point in being aggressive all the way through practice, getting to the stage, and then going really conservative and not throwing the front of the car around too much and easing the brakes and the throttle on, because you're not going to get the same bite, the same traction. You're not going to be able to carry the same momentum that you were in practice. So it's a lot of mistakes. It's a pretty big learning curve. I learned a hell of a lot more out of this simple New Zealand stage than I did through the Argentina nightmare, which is just, as I say, about keeping off the walls and survival and getting a really good time. And I was happy with what I did, but this was a whole new learning curve that I didn't really expect. And in fact, this was one of only 2 or 3 times I got to the end of the stage without a puncture. So that's the other thing I would say. Don't be too keen to restart during practice, because you end up learning the first 3 or 4 sectors of the stage really well, and then the last 2 or 3 sectors you just don't know. You've only done it a couple of times. So these are things I'm going to work on in the future, but that is going to be the end of stage 3. You can see it was not a very good time at all. After the accident and after the penalty, it was a 1 minute 21.7. Sorry, an 8 minute 21.7. Wish it was a 1 minute, but it's not good. It wasn't a good time, and you'll see as soon as the leaderboard pops up here as the results upload that it wasn't strong, and I was a hell of a lot worse than last time. So 1,184th, not particularly good, but yeah, there it is. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll enjoy me on this learning curve next time. But for now, it's goodbye.